Hi guys, welcome to the channel. I wanted to talk about confessing and reassurance, which is a topic that comes up in obviously almost every OCD theme. I don't think there's any OCD sufferer who has not asked for some form of reassurance or confessed, or the other side of the coin of confessing is venting, compulsively venting. So, yeah, I thought I would dive into it and highlight some subtleties, some nuances, and clarify some misconceptions about it as well. But before I go on, please subscribe to the channel. Let us know what you think. Give us some feedback, and you can suggest some topics too. We can try to cover them if we can get to it. So because we do get a lot of recommendations, so we try to cover as much as we can. But yeah, I just First of all, I want to say that confessing and reassurance are not separate OCD themes, because sometimes I've seen this in like OCD forums or online discussions where people are calling it confessing OCD or reassurance OCD. It's not a separate theme, but it's just a part of every other theme because it's a compulsion that we're doing. So compulsions themselves are not the theme. It's what we're afraid of essentially that make the theme. Um, and the aim of confessing and reassurance are essentially three things: trying to get certainty, trying to get comfort, and trying to get control. And these can actually be called the three C's. It's not an actual thing. I'm just saying that right now. But incidentally, all three things start with a C. So they can be called that because what we're looking for is certainty that our fear is not true. We want to have control over. It can be any form of control. It can be control over our anxiety. It can be control over what other people think of us. It can be control over some other like behavioral control as well, right? Trying to like control other people's behaviors. This goes especially for like contamination OCD, because people put OCD sufferers put rules and regulations on their loved ones that they can touch certain things and not touch certain things. So in that sense, we want control. And the third thing is comfort. That comfort feeling that you're chasing all the time. I want to feel comfortable in myself. I don't want to feel anxious. I don't want to feel nervous. I don't want to feel scared. I don't want to feel anger, frustration, sadness, depression, whatever it is. So you're essentially trying to have that comfort feeling inside. And in that sense, you're having trying to have control over your emotions as well. So it can fit like in different ways, but essentially these are the three things that we're looking for. And these things can be very, very subtle. We don't even at times realize that we are looking for reassurance or we are confessing. We just feel like, oh, we're just having like a regular discussion. And I'll just get to that because that is a very important point to highlight over here as well. But the first thing I want to talk about is like different ways that we look for reassurance or confess, because again these are indirect or very, again, subtle ways we do it, and therefore we stay stuck in that cycle. Obviously, one is the very obvious way that when we are literally blatantly asking for reassurance. Hey, did you cheat on me last night? Right? Or did you touch that thing that I asked you not to touch? Or do you think I'm a bad person? So they are obviously, those are very like direct ways of asking for reassurance, right? But then there are subtle ways as well that we find ways to do it, because OCD sufferers are, and I don't mean this in a malicious way, but OCD sufferers are master manipulators of conversations. Like we know how to take a conversation exactly to the point we want to take it to, and we build it towards that point where we can hear exactly what we need to hear, where we make the person, like we extract exactly the words or the answer that we're looking for from the other person. So we find our ways, and so we can be very, very sneaky about it. It's not as blatantly as the reassurance questions I just highlighted. It can also be just like very casually kind of like playing your little tricks to make the conversation go a certain way. So we have to look out for our own clever, sneaky behaviors. Um, but yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about was, and we do this with our loved ones, our partners, or other family members, or so. Let's say we know that confessing is not good for us, or asking for reassurance is not good for us. When we are feeling particularly triggered, or when we are feeling anxious, we'll start displaying that mood quite a lot, right? We'll visibly show it, and we'll try to make it obvious to the person next to us. We might go quiet, we might be sighing a lot, we might be heavy breathing a lot, or we might not be laughing at something they're saying. Like, we will make it a point to, like, communicate silently that we're not doing good. And obviously then they are compelled to ask, like, hey, like, are you okay, what's up? And then this brings me to my second point, which is joined to this. Then we're like, oh, my partner asked me, then I had to tell them what was on my mind. Or my partner asked me, therefore that's normal that I tell them what's going on with me, right? That's not confessing. I didn't bring up the topic, they brought up the topic. But no, you don't have to tell them. Even if they bring it up, you can literally skirt around the subject as well, and say that I'm just not doing well, but I don't want to go into it, or I'm fine. Like, you can go with that. You don't have to go into the details of, yeah, earlier on, so I was on social media and I saw this post, and now that has triggered me. I saw this news story and that has triggered me, and that's on my mind, and I'm afraid of this. We literally then go into it. So just because your partner has asked about it does not give you the license to confess or ask for reassurance from them. Also, again, slight nuance there, that confessing is more often than not the pathway to look for reassurance. Because obviously, when we're confessing our thoughts to someone and being like, I think I might have cancer, I was feeling this, I was feeling that, and it was just worrying me and whatnot. Obviously, the other person is going to say that, hey, you're okay. The doctor said this, and these are the signs of cancer. You are fine, you are healthy. So, I mean, even if we're not asking them that, hey, do you think I'm healthy? By confessing and venting to them, obviously they're going to give a response that is going to be reassuring for us. So remember that. Then the other way we try to get reassurance out of people is also pestering them. So our loved ones are sometimes aware of how OCD works, and they're aware of, like, the mechanisms of confessing and reassurance. And I work with some people like that whose loved ones know about that, and if they're watching this video, they know that I'm talking about them. But and so their loved ones who are trying to support them are going to be holding back on asking for reassurance, or like discouraging them to confess. But then they would pester so much, and they would throw quite OCD sufferers do that. They really do that. They throw a fit, or they would throw a bit of a tantrum, or they will make it very difficult for the other person to then not respond in a reassuring way, because we literally want to get it out of people, even if that means that we have to, like, kind of like shake it out of them. What's the other word? It starts with a J. When you do this to the other person, I'm forgetting it, but basically that's what you want to do to the other person. We're like, tell me the answer, give me the answer I need. So we make the other person, we force them to that point that they then do that, right? So we have to be in control of our own reactions and moods, and the way we, again, force things or force reassurance, either blatantly forcing it or doing it in a sneaky, clever, manipulative way. And again, I don't mean manipulative in a malicious way, but we like to curate the conversation to suit our needs. That's what I'm essentially saying, right? So that's what we do. Then this is also what we do, is that when we know that asking for reassurance or confessing is a bad thing, what we then do is we find like a middle ground, right? So what we do is, when we're feeling anxious or when we're feeling triggered, we don't, again, blatantly confess, or we don't blatantly ask for reassurance. But then every time we are triggered or when we're feeling anxious, what we'll do is we'll just say that, hey, I'm just not having a great day, but I can't go into it because it's going to be confessing, but I'm just not feeling that great today, right? And that initially, that is a good starting point to not go into confessing. or to not ask for reassurance, that's a good place to stop. But just like anything, even that can become compulsive, because then every single time we're triggered, we'll check in with our partner. We'll just like quickly drop in a little piece of information and just say, hey, I'm just not doing that well today. Hey, I'm just stressed out today. Hey, I'm just a bit anxious today. That's all. And we'll just do it in a way to relieve ourselves of that responsibility to keep it in. We do it to relieve ourselves of that pressure cooker feeling that we have to keep it in. So I just need to let it out a little bit, because otherwise it'll get too much, right? So, and this is also something I'll get to a little later in the video. So we just like quickly do that, and we're like, okay, at least the other person knows. And of course, our loved one, or the people who we are living with, it can be a sibling as well, or our parents as well, they might they might not give you reassurance, but what they'll do is they'll make sure to do other things that bring us comfort, right? They might make us our favorite meal, or they might, I don't know, um, give us a hug or something like that. And again, I'm not saying that those things are inherently bad, right? And that those things don't help us along the journey. So we don't need to create relationships of distance and hate with our loved ones. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that sometimes we can become addicted to getting those doses of comfort from them constantly as well. That, oh, if my partner doesn't hug me because I'm feeling anxious, that means they really are getting distant from me. That means that maybe our relationship truly is at risk or something like that, right? So we can read into the lack or presence of their comfort responses, because surely if they don't give you if you don't like give that quick piece of information that, hey, I'm not doing too well, and then they don't give you that comfort feeling, you are most likely to get very frustrated with them and agitated with them, because you're like, I told you I'm not doing well. Like, at the very least you could have done is, like, I don't know, throw a blanket over me, or like we could have done a movie, or you could have helped make it feel better somehow, right? So we are looking for we're still in some ways looking for some, like, a reassuring environment, at least. You get what I mean? Because it creates that kind of feeling of niceness, comfort, that everything is going to be okay, kind of feeling, right? That vibe and that environment becomes reassuring that way. So it is a good idea to not even check in like that and say that, hey, I'm not doing well. You can keep that information to yourself as well and see how that feels, because we are trying to increase our frustration tolerance and our distress tolerance. There's a lot of sounds in there, so sometimes I find it hard to pronounce. But yeah, there's that's what we need to increase. So by keeping things to yourself and letting yourself feel anxious, and letting yourself feel the pressure building of you not saying it, you are exposing yourself to that feeling that you're afraid of. And that is the exposure needed for you. Holding back on asking for reassurance or confessing is an exposure, because you, as a result of it, you start to feel very uncomfortable. So those feelings in itself become that exposure that you need to do, right? And here's the too much thing as well, because that I was earlier saying, and I was talking about this in the WhatsApp groups today as well. Like, there's an imaginary limit line of that too much thing, right? So we might not, let's say, ask for reassurance for, let's say, 5 days, or we might not confess for 5 days, and after that we're like, okay, now it's been 5 days, but the anxiety is still there, the fear is still there, so I need to let it out now because it's getting too much. Because we think if our anxiety levels cross that too much line, then we will permanently be stuck. Anxiety will be there forever. It's going to take over us forever. That's what the fear cycle is, that we're going to stay stuck like this for the rest of our life. So we need to let that too much feeling happen and see how that feels. Again, you're not going to have a perfect track record. Of course, while you are working on the recovery journey, initially, especially, you are going to be, um, you are going to like have slip ups. you are going to, even after a few days, you might confess again, or you might ask for reassurance again. Those things will happen. But as long as after slipping up as well, you try again, as long as you keep trying again, you get the hang of it and you learn from it and you build more and more momentum for yourself to eventually give up that drug that you're taking, essentially reassurance and confessing at that comfort feeling. Um, the other reassurance question that we often get is also that someone was asking me the other day, okay, so how do you deal with triggers now? And that's a normal question to ask, by the way. It's not, again, that question in itself is not inherently a reassurance question, but it sometimes can be, and very often can be, because what people are trying to make sure is that, again, that fear of failure thing, because you're afraid of being stuck. So you want to make sure that people who have recovered from it don't face that level of anxiety now. And so you're trying to reassure yourself that no, I can recover. And so that hope is important. Let me actually clarify this even further. We've talked about what recovery feels like in our videos, right? We talk about us being recovered. We talk about how we deal with triggers. So people will watch those videos and then still ask us, but no, how do you deal with it, right? So that is where it's reassurance, because you already know the answer. You just want to hear it again just for that dose of comfort that no, I'll, that yes, truly, I will not be stuck for the rest of my life. So that's often, like, again, a very subtle but sneaky way of asking for reassurance. The question itself is not inherently a reassurance question, because obviously you should know what recovery feels like, and hope is very important. But if you're trying to get that information repeatedly, then of course you're trying to chase a certain feeling or an answer. Um, yeah, and essentially what that question is also doing is trying to look for, like, because you can hear it in people's tone and their voice as well, that they're scanning every single word that you're saying, right? They're very carefully scanning every single word. Even when watching these videos, people do this. They scan every single word very carefully just to be like, okay, what's that exact piece of information that I need to unlock this, like, fear cycle? Or this, how can I unlock my perspectives? What are those words that I can just, like, adopt and embody right now mentally, and just, like, start applying them right now? So when you're doing that, you're, again, essentially you're looking for a kick. You're looking for a drug, and you most likely will not find that, because all these things that we talk about are not going to give you an instant dose of relief. Yes, they're going to give you light bulb moments, which kind of feel like that it kind of gives you that relief. But it's not going to happen with every single video or with every single sentence that we say, because it's a gradual shift in perspective of, like, okay, I've collected this information, and now I'm going to, like, sit with this information. I'm going to try to apply it. Maybe it might work the first time, maybe it might not. I'll try again. I'll work on my other perspectives. I'll work on my other behaviors, life structure, understanding acceptance, and slowly but surely all these building pieces come together to break that fear cycle, right? But no one sentence is going to make it like, now I am free from OCD. I don't need any help. Nobody can stop me. That's not what happens, right? Um, the other thing I really want to highlight is the question that comes up, and that's why today I'm doing another long video. But the reason I'm doing a long video is because I want to try and cover as much as possible with this topic, because it's so important. The question that comes up is that, okay, when I'm not asking for reassurance and I'm not confessing, how do I deal with the anxiety that comes as a result of it, right? And I have two answers for it. The first answer is you just do, you just deal with it, right? In a sense, what it feels like is, like someone has pushed you into a swimming pool and you kind of have to figure out swimming on your own, because, like, I can give you a manual of, like, how to deal with discomfort or how to deal with the anxiety that comes after an exposure, right? Holding back on reassurance and confessing is also an exposure. So you can read all of that, but the question will still be there, that No, but what if I can't handle it? No, but what if I can't get through it? How will I do? What is it exactly that I do? What's the exact mindset? What can I say to myself in that exact moment of feeling anxious that can make me feel calmed down? Essentially, you might, in that moment when you are triggered and when you feel that pressure building up, you might not be able to calm yourself down, um, unless you actually do the compulsion itself. But you might not be able to calm yourself down because the point is to not calm yourself down and allowing yourself to feel anxious and allowing yourself to feel quite bad, because that's a feeling that we've been running away from. So, and it'll be very like trial and error kind of thing as well, because until and unless you don't experience it for yourself and you don't put yourself through that experience, you will not learn the ropes. Again, this goes for exposures as well. People can get stuck with not doing exposures because all they want to know is that, like, they'll if you say to them that yes, you'll be fine after exposures, they'll still want to know, will I be fine? How long will the anxiety last? How will I deal with it? What is the exact feeling that will come up? Will it be ever okay? Are you sure I will not be stuck after that? So so that question will always be there. So that leap of faith thing, you'll have to take at some point. You There is going to be a certain amount of uncertainty that you will have to get through, right? So you'll have to learn to swim. Part of it you'll have to do on your own, because obviously I can't come and physically make you stop asking for reassurance, or nobody can come and physically alter the anxiety that will happen internally. That is going to happen regardless. Initially it will be difficult because, again, think about it. It's a drug that you're addicted to, and when you get yourself off of it, you're going to have some withdrawal kind of feelings, right? So that is bound to happen. That is part of the process. Initially it will be difficult, but over time it gets easier. So that's the first part. You just handle it as best as you can, as best as you know, in that moment, of course, with some of the guidance, like, again, from your therapist or your coach, or from like these videos. You have that guidance, you have that information, but part of it will also feel like, again, that you're going into a war zone without any weapons. It's going to feel like that. So go ahead and face that exposure. But the second part of it is, again, there's no straightforward answer to this because there are different ways of doing it, right? So if, let's say, you're feeling like a really strong urge to confess to your partner, and you're sitting together watching a movie, and literally your partner is right there, and you're feeling like the pressure is really, really, really building up, and you really can't handle it, right? Well, you can handle it and you can practice on that. But again, you can always try to separate yourself, go to another room to maybe carry on with your day. If there's a task that you need to get on with, if there's something you need to do work related, if you want to go for a walk or something like that, you essentially, what you try your best to not give into that exact thing that you want to say or ask. You try your best to not give into that. So try to delay, postpone that urge. Try to, like, separate yourself from that environment if it's getting way too much. But also, it's a lot to do with the mindset, because the mindset is like, if I can deal with this level of panic rising in me, then I'm you know um, then I can deal with pretty much a lot of things in life, right? Because this is what feels like the like max level scary thing that you will ever go through, right? That I can't deal with this anxiety, I can't deal with the guilt, I can't deal with the shame, I can't deal with the lack of control. So I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this, right? So if you but think about it. If you're able to get through this too much phase, and you're able to cross that line, and you get through it, you can face pretty much anything. So you're working really hard and facing short term discomfort for a long term gain. Because the idea is not just to get rid of OCD or to recover from OCD. The idea is to build a very robust kind of mindset that can help you deal with life's challenges and difficulties and discomfort in life. So, like, even after you recovered, your life is going to be full of other challenges that will come up. health related problems, unexpected tragedies in the family, death in the family, illnesses, financial losses, I don't know, relationships falling apart. There are going to be so many challenges that come up. If we start spiraling with every single thing that happens that way, we won't be able to have that balanced approach of, yes, feeling our feelings, but also having a rational, practical approach to situations. So that's where the robust mindset comes in, that whatever comes our way, we can handle it, we can get through it, right? So that is why holding back on confessing and reassurance is important, and remembering what our end goal is. That is something that can really help motivate us and take us forward with it. The last thing that I want to mention is that sometimes we trick ourselves into thinking that, oh, I'm not asking for reassurance, because in our mind, asking for reassurance looks like us having a complete meltdown, sweating, just stressed out, and all heavy breathing and like panicking and just being like, no, please tell me the answer to this. So that's how we imagine like really craving reassurance looks like, right? Even if you go on online forums and groups for OCD, you see people writing, asking reassurance questions, and the tone is also obviously very panicky, like 10 question marks, 11 exclamation marks, you know, writing in capitals, just writing and using very catastrophic language, all those things. So, what we imagine the other person while they're typing, it's like, just like really on edge, just really super anxious, like, but we can feel, we can be feeling like we really need reassurance, or we really need to confess. That need and that craving can be there, but it doesn't have to look like us having a meltdown. It's not always that. Because then people think that, oh, I was feeling okay, I was just asking a question. That's still you still most likely are asking a reassurance question, right? The tons of times that I have confessed or I have asked for reassurance, in fact, I don't think I have, because I'm generally someone who has calm and collected demeanor for the most part, right? And like, even if my friends watch this video that I'm doing and they hear what I'm saying, they might not, they might be confused, because they did not see what I was feeling or seeing internally. So in my mind, there were conversations that I was having with them where I was looking for that certainty, or I was trying to confess certain things and get them off my chest, right? But to them, it looked like me having a regular, normal, everyday conversation. So the electricity went out, but I'm going to carry on doing this video just to finish it up, right? So to my friends, and whoever I was talking to, they probably thought I was just having a regular, normal conversation, and that is how I would play it out as well. But internally, I would be really needing that answer. I've had, and again, even with panic attacks, obviously, if you're having like a blown panic attack, you'll be sweating, heavy breathing, probably feeling really dizzy, not able to stand. All of the, you might throw up as well. So those things can happen if you're really having a full blown panic attack. But sometimes you might be having like a relatively low scale panic attack, but even with that, you're feeling, but you're still like, carrying forward. Like, I've had many, you know, uh, dinners where, and I can't even count how many, where I've been sitting at a dinner table with friends or family, and internally, I feel my anxiety levels blowing up. I'm starting to see colors. I'm starting to feel like I'm disconnecting and disassociating with my environment. Internally, it feels like everything is about to blow up. Internally, it's feeling like I might just throw up, but somebody sitting right next to me is going to say a joke to me, and they're going to talk to me about something, and I'm just like, like, I just smile, and because I just felt like I didn't have the space to, spiral or fall to the ground or do any of those things, right? That I might do at home. So I felt like I had to keep it together. Obviously, looking back, I feel like it was a great exercise and great exposure in not doing that and not getting up and going to the bathroom. At times I did, but the times that I sat there and still was there and didn't go home, was a great exposure, because my fear was, what if I like faint in front of them or throw up in front of them and stuff like that. What I'm trying to say is that I was still on the table. I was still carrying forward with the conversation as best as I could, even while there was like anxiety building up inside, and it felt like the most difficult thing to do in that moment, right? So, probably none of my friends will be, if I tell them that, oh, this was happening, they'd be like, wait, when did that happen? They wouldn't know that unless I there were some occasions where I actually did tell them that, hey, I'm having a panic attack, I'm leaving, I'll just be back in a second, right? So there were those moments as well, but I didn't do that every time. So to my friends, probably they were like, oh, this was just a regular evening and nothing happened. So asking for reassurance and confessing doesn't always have to mean that we are doing it very frantically. That doesn't mean it's not a reassurance question. If you're not feeling panicky about it and if you're not feeling frantic about it, doesn't mean it's not reassurance or confessing. You can be very calm about it, but still be confessing. You can be very calm about it, but still be asking for reassurance. Because I can tell you almost 100% that even in that calm demeanor, if you hold back on asking that reassurance question, by the next day or the next 2 days at least, you will start feeling anxious and you'll be like, no, but I need an answer to this. So even if in that moment you're not particularly feeling like you need that you're just having a meltdown, if you leave that question hanging, or if you leave those things you want to talk about, if you leave them inside, over time they are surely likely to make you feel very uncomfortable. So that in itself will give you that insight that you most likely are craving that and it is an exposure and you were doing a compulsion, right? So, oh, and now actually the last thing I want to cover is, and this is something that we don't have to go into a lot of detail in this video, is that obviously working on your perspectives, because ultimately what matters is our perspectives on our worst case scenario. The reason that you're doing these compulsions, any compulsions, including confessing and reassurance, is because in our mind we think that our worst case scenario is something we cannot handle. We can't tolerate it. We can't stand it. So we need that comfort, we need that certainty, we need that control. Again, the three C's, right? Um, so 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 work on those perspectives, work on those fears. What is it that you're afraid of? Like even with like you being afraid that, let's say that you might cheat on your partner, the fear, yes, the fear is cheating on your partner, but behind it is perhaps the fear of chronic guilt and shame, the fear of not being unhappy for the rest of your life, fear of not being able to handle chronic guilt and shame, that it'll be too much, I won't be able to handle it. Again, that imaginary line of too much, right? I will never be able to accept myself, I will never be happy with somebody else, all these things. So there's more to what meets the eye. So on the surface of it, there's a fear, but behind it are all these other beliefs and core fears that are fueling that. So extremely important to look at that as you are also cutting back on compulsions like confessing, like reassurance. I think that covers about everything I wanted to cover on this topic. I hope this is helpful. I hope this proves to be a life changing video for you. I hope this provides a lot of insight, and I'll see you soon with another video.